I bought a pre-hung door that didn't have mortises for the strike plates or face plates cut at the factory. It received some poor reviews because of this, but I've installed other doors that did have mortises that were too small. So either way, we need to make some modifications. I've used this tool before and wasn't impressed. The included bit left an incredibly rough line and it wasn't height adjustable. There are more expensive jigs that look slightly better, but I quickly realized I could make one just as good for under $1 and customize it to any size I wanted. You could build something that works just as well out of scrap wood, but I 3D printed this one. I'm going to go through how I built the jig in Tinkercad super quickly. This is not intended to be an exhaustive guide to CAD software. If you've never done 3D printing before, there are plenty of excellent tutorials that will give this a lot of context. The first thing I did was use the solid box tool to create this box. The goal of the box is so that the base of your router is supported at all times. I did some math and came up with 76 by 117 for my router. Then I measured my router bit and decided I needed a height of 10 millimeters so that the bearing would be well supported. You can modify the sizes to fit your tools. I then used the hole box tool to create a hole the size of my strike plate plus half a millimeter. The strike plate is 25.6 by 57.2, so the hole is 26.1 by 57.7. I used the ruler tool to center it on the box. Next was another box that will clamp to the door. I positioned this to make the hole 0.6 millimeters off center. My door is 44.1 millimeters. Half of that is 22.05. The midpoint of the hole is 38 millimeters. I added 22.05 plus 38 plus 0.6. This tells us that the distance from the edge of the project to the end point of this box is 60.65. Why an extra 0.6? Because I want to be able to use old playing cards to fine-tune the position, and the thickness of a playing card is 0.2 millimeters. I also used the wedge tool to add this wedge for stability while printing. I then created a union group and exported the project to an STL file. I sliced the STL file at 10% infill and printed it. I already installed the deadbolt in this door, so you get to watch me install the handle. I've chosen a passage lever rather than a traditional front door entry handle. I like levers because they're easier to operate by people with disabilities that do not allow them to grasp things, or even just someone with their hands full. I taped over the hole on the other side of the door, and now I'm setting up a vacuum to take care of the sawdust I'm about to make. Now I'll use the latch to position the jig, and clamp it into place. I bought this pattern router bit which has a bearing that's going to ride along the edge of the jig. I'm using it with a rotozip spiral saw. I have a router, but it's huge and heavy, and I thought the spiral saw would be easier. The first thing I noticed when using it for this task is the base plate is not meant for precision adjustments. But with a little trial and error, I got the bit to the depth I wanted. I start the tool with the bit in the hole but not touching any material. This is because I don't want to risk nicking the sides of the jig by inserting the tool while it's running. Now I route the mortise in a clockwise fashion. This faceplate has squared corners, so I used a hammer and chisel to clean them up. Then I used a self-centering drill bit to drill holes for the screws and installed the lever. And this is the finished product. This was not a particularly complicated project, and I'm really pleased with the results. If you make your own mortising jig, let me know in the comments how it worked out for you. Thanks for watching. So it's the next day, and I'm starting to see why people don't like this door. I went to cut the mortises on the jamb, and the first thing I noticed is I need to redesign my jig to fit over the stop and the weather stripping, and this is what I came up with. The second thing is I needed to cut and remove this white plastic because I couldn't come up with a good way to cut the mortise with it in place. It was attached with some impressively strong adhesive that none of the chemicals I had could remove, so this is going to require a little more effort to look good. Anyway, the hardware is finished now, and after some sanding and painting, the job will be complete.